Hello, everyone. I am Craig Lindsay, and I am the Director of Programs and Public Policy at the Kidney Foundation Ontario branch. Welcome to today's webinar, Mindful Living, Navigating CKD or Chronic Kidney Disease with Awareness and Resilience. Before we begin our webinar today, it's really important to recognize the Indigenous lands that we are on. Inspired by the 94 recommended calls to action made by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada, land acknowledgements are a necessary first step toward honoring the original occupants of a place. They also help Canadians recognize and respect Indigenous peoples' inherent kinship beliefs when it comes to the land, especially so since those beliefs were restricted for so long. I acknowledge with gratitude and great respect that I'm joining this meeting today from Toronto, which is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Wyandot, and the Anishinaabe peoples. If you know the territory from which you are joining today, I encourage you, share it in the chat. The Kidney Foundation of Canada would like to thank our generous sponsors for the 2024 webinar series, Accenture, Amgen, AstraZeneca, GSK, and Otsuka. Thank you. Their ongoing support allows us to come together to have broader, bolder, and braver conversations. I should say the information shared in today's webinar is current as of today, November 12th, 2024, and the information shared in this webinar is not intended as medical advice. It's general in nature and does not necessarily cover all circumstances. While we do make every effort to be accurate, we recommend that you always seek professional medical advice from your individual situation. I'm truly excited to continue the conversation today around mindful living, navigating chronic kidney disease with awareness and resilience. Chronic kidney disease can often feel overwhelming, but with the right tools, knowledge, and mindset, we can approach it with strength, with clarity, and with resilience. Today's discussion is all about exploring how a mindful approach can help individuals living with CKD navigate the physical, the emotional, and the mental challenges that come with this condition. We're going to delve into how awareness, self-care, and cultivating resilience can transform the experience of living with CKD. I'm really pleased today to introduce our first guest patient partner, Sarah Scipione. In January of 2024, Sarah was diagnosed with anti-GBM, or good pastures disease. It's a rare condition affecting 1 in a million people. Sarah, you're 1 in a million. This aggressive disease rapidly targets the kidneys, prompting her to undergo urgent, intensive treatment to avoid kidney failure. Fortunately, the early detection allowed for successful treatment. However, Sarah now lives with glomerular nephritis, or GN, and reduced kidney function stemming from the damage caused to her kidneys. Sarah is a mom to a very busy 3-year-old daughter and is fortunate to have a strong support network that includes her husband, her family, and her close friends. Recently, they came together for their very first kidney walk, and she was very proud of their collective effort to help raise funds for the Kidney Foundation. Sarah, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your experience with all of us.
Thank you so much for having me. I was really happy to be asked to be a part of this today. So as you heard in my intro, my whole journey with kidney disease just started at the very beginning of this year. So it was obviously a pretty big shock hearing the anti-GBM diagnosis and trying to digest and process what it all really meant. I had no experience with anything related to kidney health before this, and I was a healthy 34-year-old with a toddler at home. I definitely did not think going into the hospital feeling unwell was going to play out how it did, with me being there for almost a couple weeks, having a central line put in, going through about 15 rounds of plasma exchange and a lot of other medications and injections. So it was a pretty huge shock for me and my family, and it kind of instantly took over our lives. And dealing with all of this coming at us at once was really difficult. And when I did return home from the hospital, I still had to be a parent and try as best as I could to show up and be present for my daughter. So that was what really led me down the path of learning about mindfulness and meditation in general. I did have some experience with therapy prior to meditation, or sorry, prior to the diagnosis. But I did start going pretty regularly afterwards, and I learned a lot from my therapist about mindfulness and meditation. And I think managing any sort of chronic illness usually involves emotional and psychological challenges on top of all the physical ones. So it is really important to talk about mental health, and to have these open conversations like we're having today, because it can take a pretty big emotional toll. And even just recognizing and acknowledging that is an important part of the journey. So that's a little bit more about me. I'll pass it back to you, Craig.
Thanks, Sarah. Really appreciate you sharing your journey with us today. It's not always easy, perhaps people listening today understand, to speak about really personal issues, your health, your journey through healthcare, um, your resilience and your mindfulness in the face of your diagnosis are really inspiring. We're really grateful for your openness and the insights you've offered on navigating life with CKD. Next, we're really pleased to welcome our next speaker, Erwin Schweitzer. I know Erwin. Erwin lives in Ottawa, and he's a caregiver to his wife, Kathy. Um, he happily helped support her in her many challenges with kidney disease for the last 5 years. Erwin's passionate about giving back. And by that, I mean he volunteers regularly with the Kidney Foundation as a caregiver's virtual peer support group facilitator. He's also a member of the Ottawa Hospital's Renal Patient Family Advisory Committee and a member of the advisory board of the Ottawa chapter of the Kidney Foundation. Outside of volunteer work, Erwin enjoys acrylic painting. I've seen it, it's amazing. He gardens, he cooks, and he loves spending time with extended family. With a compassionate and insightful perspective, Erwin is committed to empowering others to navigate the complex world of kidney health. Erwin, thank you for joining us and for all the work you do to support the chronic kidney disease community. We're looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Craig. And thank you, Sarah, for sharing your story. I can't imagine how it would have been for you to actually find out on such a sudden notice. My wife Kathy was diagnosed with kidney disease in 2015, 2016. Um, a concern for us, but we did not feel any immediate impact the way you did, Sarah. We actually continued our lives, mindful of the fact that her kidneys were failing, but not really understanding or preferring not to dwell on the impact of it. We continued along those lines until about 3 or so years ago when Kathy's kidney function started to decline to the point where she needed to go on to peritoneal dialysis. She's been doing PD now for the last 3 or so years, with a view towards going on to getting a transplant. And Kathy started the workup for transplant. And the actual process for being worked up to get a transplant is very, very intense and very, very detailed. And it ended up being a good news, bad news story. The bad news was that during part of the process, they diagnosed Kathy with lung cancer. The good news is that they diagnosed her with lung cancer at a very early stage, such that it was asymptomatic. We had the diagnosis. We then went for surgery, and Kathy had lung surgery. She's been cancer-free for the last 2.5 years or so, which is the waiting time that the kidney transplant protocols demand a potential kidney recipient wait until the cancer is in remission. So we have waited that period of time. We are now back on the transplant list. And quite recently, we found out that we have 2 people who have matched to Kathy. So we now go into the second phase of workup for that. So during the whole process, Craig mentioned that I do acrylic painting. I started that at the early stages of Kathy's diagnosis, not as a consequence of the diagnosis, but because I was looking for things to do. And I kind of fell into the mindfulness aspect of Kathy's illness and trying to manage her illness and my approach to it through the painting. I started it as any beginner does with very, very crude efforts. But as time went by, I'd like to think that my skill improved. But more important than that, I started looking at things differently. I was able to um, look at a tree and see leaves differently. And without having the experience that Sarah mentioned with being with a mindfulness therapist, I've come to understand that looking at things and appreciating them for what they are is an element of mindfulness. Colors seem different to me. Kathy will still say that she sees white with a pink tinge to it, but I'll still say, no, it's just white. But aside from that little difference, I can appreciate colors a little bit differently. When I'm cooking, I like to try different spices, additions to what I'm preparing for a meal, and enjoying it for what it is, the difference of it. And it's quite an interesting thing to see how daily things in my life, especially, can be incorporated into how I manage the way I think about Kathy's disease. And as I said, being more intuitive about mindfulness, it's just very, very enlightening and very helpful to be able to appreciate a leaf for more than just being a leaf, or the smell of cooking vegetables for more than just the smell of cooking vegetables. And I think what I'd like to do is stop talking right
Yeah, I've seen everything, Erwin.
now.
That's awesome. And for those in the space, and I think there are almost 50 people, we haven't really spoken so much about what mindfulness is, but Sarah and Erwin have strategically teased some of the elements of mindfulness. And our third panelist will actually help us reach a better understanding of what mindfulness actually can be. I just wanted to quickly say, Sarah, from your story, I did not know what was ahead. And I think we forget how scary that is. You've been through this journey, and looking back, you have perspective. But in the moment, you don't know what's ahead.
Yeah.
I was also taken by your statement that you still wanted to be there for your 3-year-old, your child, with all that was going on. How did you maintain your focus to be there for the people who are depending on you? And for Merwin, I love the way he said, how I manage how I think. I think what we're going to learn today is some tips and tools for how you manage how you think. I have some questions. Erwin, thanks again for sharing your story, for all the incredible work you do to support those living with chronic kidney disease. Your dedication to your wife, Kathy, and to the wider kidney health community is really inspiring. Before we continue, I have a few questions for you both. Sarah, I wonder, what surprised you the most about incorporating mindfulness into your CKD journey? Were there any specific benefits you hadn't anticipated? And maybe just suggest how you actually implemented mindfulness in your journey.
Sure. Yeah. I would say it has been surprising with how much it created a shift from feeling overwhelmed by all the things that I couldn't control, moving to like acceptance. So when I was in the thick of things and my kidney function was really low, I remember the frustration with how little control I had and all of the unknowns. Going to appointments every week to see if things had improved, and finding out my kidney function was getting lower and lower, and hearing more talk of dialysis and a transplant. It was all very overwhelming, and I would sort of imagine what the rest of my life was going to look like. And I found myself replaying certain scenarios over and over in my head. And there was just so much heavy anxiety and worry that caused anxiety attacks, which was not something I had ever dealt with before. So I kind of knew I needed help reframing my thinking, which mindfulness has really helped with, sort of making that shift to acceptance and focusing on the things that I can actually control, like my diet and exercise and just living a healthy lifestyle in general, and trying not to overthink and worry and dwell on all of the unknowns and the things that I can't control. And I would say the benefits I didn't anticipate, learning to improve like my coping skills in general, I hadn't really anticipated. So I think it can really help to better manage your emotional reactions to any sort of health setbacks or changes. And you can actually kind of start to recognize patterns in yourself, and you can kind of catch your negative thoughts. And instead of reacting to your thoughts, you can almost like step back, observe them, and try to choose a little bit more balanced response. And I say try because it's still very much a work in progress for me, but it does take time and consistency.
Sorry, you mean it's not helpful to dwell on the past and focus on your negative thoughts? No,
Not so much. I've done
but
a lot.
it's a struggle, right?
Yeah.
I love how you said reframe how you're thinking. Yeah, that's really great insight, Sarah. Erwin, I wonder about you. There's living with kidney disease and there's supporting a loved one with kidney disease. Can you talk about the challenges you faced as a caregiver when you think about mindfulness? How did it help you support Kathy, is what I mean to say.
As I mentioned, I came to mindfulness intuitively. And unlike Sarah, I am really not much of a person that thinks far into the future. Obviously the transplant is in the future. What's going to happen post-transplant is in the future. But I'm a very nose to the grindstone type of person, and I'm able to deal, I believe, effectively with the issues that are at hand. We've been having troubles with Kathy's peritoneal dialysis machines over the last little while. We've gone through two or three of them. Um, and I could imagine that this is terrible. What are we going to do? But my thinking is, okay, I've got a guidebook. I'll read through the error messages. I'll try and figure it out. If that doesn't work, I'll call the home dialysis unit and ask them for help. If they can't help me, then I will call Baxter and say, please send me a new machine. So what I've been able to do is look at what the issues are and just move a little bit forward and try and address that particular issue, as opposed to worry about the worst things that are possible that could happen or probably wouldn't happen. Um, as I hear myself speak, I'm wondering what I'm actually saying. So I'm mindful of what I'm actually trying to get across. And the whole notion is that I have to deal with the present. If the machine is not working properly, I will deal with the machine. I won't worry about what's going to happen a few hours from now. My problem is now, define the problem, figure out a solution, and move on towards it. I've always been that sort of a person. The other thing is that Kathy and I have talked about mindfulness in the way we deal with her illness, and we've decided that what we can control is how we are going to relate to the illness. And we've decided that, notwithstanding the fact that Kathy has to dialyze every day, we are not going to define ourselves by the fact that Kathy is a kidney patient. Kathy is a doctor. I am a retiree. We are grandparents. We like to go out and meet friends. That's how we define ourselves. Kidney disease is part of our lives, but is not our life. So I would say that that's how I manage myself as a caregiver. It's a package. It's not one particular thing. It's how to address the problems, find the solutions, be satisfied with the solutions that I come up with, and take pleasure in having found the solution.
Well said, Erwin. I love how you said how we're going to deal with Kathy's kidney disease. Sarah, one last question for you. Can you give any advice to people who might be on the call today? Maybe people are skeptical. Maybe people are saying, oh, you can't just tell yourself to think better. You can't tell yourself to focus. Can you give them any advice to sort of light a lamp at the end of the tunnel? Like, how would you encourage them to believe it's worth trying?
Sure, yeah. I would say I could definitely see people maybe thinking that mindfulness might almost sound like too simple to make a difference, but I would encourage you to just approach it with an open mind and remember that it's not about fixing everything all at once or pretending that what you're dealing with isn't challenging. It's more so about learning to engage with your experience in sort of a more compassionate way and just really noticing and accepting your thoughts and feelings. I think dealing with any chronic illness can create a lot of mental and emotional stress, and mindfulness can kind of help to break out of a cycle of anxiety and frustration. Even just like small moments of mindfulness, like simply pausing to take a few breaths, can lower your stress and help improve your like emotional resilience. So I would say, even if it feels uncomfortable or kind of unfamiliar at first, just approach it with curiosity and an open mind and see how it fits into your life.
Love it. That's reason to hope. Erwin, one quick last question for you before we move on. You mentioned briefly about art and gardening and cooking helped you connect to joy. Was it hard for you to find joy? And tell me about the struggle to bring joy back into your life as you were coping, supporting your family through a troubling journey.
That is a very interesting question, but first I have to say to Sarah that you have encapsulated what I was trying to say uh, in my little statement before when I said that listening to my own words, I'm really not sure that I'm getting a point across, but you articulated my thoughts as well. So thank you very much for clarifying my thoughts. I retired in 2018, and I am not a very good person when I'm not doing things. I needed to find things. I've always cooked. I got into gardening more as a default because Kathy decided that I had the time to do it and she didn't. And I found joy in digging in the dirt. I found pleasure in finding different new plants that we could grow and taking pleasure in cutting them back, deadheading, and all of that sort of thing. So they're little things. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, compared to any sort of a chronic disease, deadheading a rose is no big deal. But there's pleasure in cutting it back and watching that stem at that node grow another bit of stem and a new leaf coming out, a new flower coming out. It's the same thing with cooking. You know, everybody has their go-to recipes, but every now and then you try something new and it may not work out the first time, but you're pleased you tried it and you can see how you might improve it the second time. And as I've already described with painting, it's something that I've always had a little bit of an artistic bent. I went the scientific route in school and in work, but now that I'm retired, I find that my art is my expression for the creativity that I felt I had when I was doing scientific research. And I don't see much of a difference between, quote, doing science or doing art in terms of having a product that I'm satisfied with, that I'm happy with. And I'm constantly trying different things and I take pleasure from learning. I mean, the last thing that I tried to teach myself was computer generated art using a pen plotter, and it was a trial, but now I'm getting results that I like. So I take pleasure in doing that. And the problem solving process to me is also a way of being mindful. Like there is an issue that I'm approaching. How do I try and solve it? Um, so the joy comes from problem solving and being satisfied with the outcome, not giving up, and not catastrophizing or saying I can't do this, but looking for different ways to do things.
Thanks for explaining it. And I hope people who are listening are thinking of ways they might reclaim joy. Kidney disease is not you. You're not kidney disease. You're not
Exactly.
you're not dialyzing or coping just for the sake of that. You're look for ways to reclaim joy. Here's my commercial plug. I'm going to talk briefly about what the Kidney Foundation does. You're not alone. The Kidney Foundation is really here for you, everyone on this meeting every step of the way, providing support to help you manage and cope with kidney disease. We know that living with kidney disease can be challenging, not only for those diagnosed, but also for their families, their loved ones. That's why we offer a range of programs and services tailored to support patients and caregivers alike. We understand that managing kidney disease goes well beyond medical treatment. Kidney disease impacts every area of your life. That's why we prioritize mental well-being. That's why we're here today. It's about offering resources designed to nurture and support your emotional health as well. Peer support groups. Connect with others who understand your journey. Our peer support groups offer a safe, compassionate environment where you can share experiences, ask questions, and find comfort among people who truly understand. Mental health educational resources. You can visit our newest site, kidneyinfo.ca, and find under each path a wellness tab filled with previous webinars, sessions on mental well-being, as well as mental and physical exercises to help you cope with the challenges of living with kidney disease. And don't forget, you can watch any of our previous webinars, and there are many. You can watch them on demand. We've had many sessions already around mental well-being that are ready for you to watch. I should share that the Kidney Foundation of Canada Atlantic branch also has really good mental health educational videos, such as What is Mental Health with Dr. Daniela DuPont, Art Therapy for Kidney Disease with Bailey Oak, and An Introduction to Mindfulness with Emily Lewis, who you're going to come to meet very shortly. Finally, I want to share with you the Kidney Wellness Hub. It offers various mental and physical activity videos. Visit kidneywellnesshub.ca to learn more. We'll drop in the chat a document with links to all these Kidney Foundation resources and more. Our goal is to provide a comprehensive support system for everyone affected by kidney disease, ensuring that no one feels they are navigating this journey alone. Remember, you are not alone. Today, I'm happy to share that we'll be exploring the powerful practice of mindfulness and how it can support those living with chronic kidney disease. Our guest, Emily Lewis, holds a Master of Science in Mindfulness-Based Interventions, and she has extensive experience in helping individuals build resilience. You heard Sarah mention resilience, and improve their well-being through evidence-based mindfulness practices. Emily's work integrates mindfulness, compassion, and self-awareness to help people manage stress, anxiety, and the challenges that life brings. In her approach, she combines techniques from mindfulness-based stress reduction and mindfulness-based compassionate living to support clients in transforming their relationships with stress and improving their quality of life. Today, Emily will also guide us through how mindfulness can help manage the emotional and physical impacts of living with chronic kidney disease, offering practical tools and insights to help enhance your resilience and well-being. We hope that this conversation provides you with a sense of peace and empowerment as we dive into how mindfulness can play a role in your journey with CKD. Emily will be leading a mindfulness-based exercise at the end of her chat, so please stay tuned for that. To start our conversation, Emily, welcome. Very pleased to meet you. Can you share what mindfulness actually is and some tips you can give anyone looking to begin incorporating this practice into their routine?
It was, it was like, we're not expecting to see the photo of me blown up. Great, I'm happy to be here. Yeah, what is mindfulness? Um, it, and I think to catch first that it's a practice. Okay, so I hear like tips, and I go. Part of me just wants to say this is a practice, and this is an ongoing practice, like any other practice that we engage in. Um, so it might also be helpful to catch what mindfulness isn't, because it's really a kind of buzzy. I think in the little bit that I've caught around from you guys already, oh, just be mindful, and like, I think that when you catch that piece around skepticism and the possibility of that being in the room, it's really important, because mindfulness is promoted as such a like big one size fits all fix for all things, and it's a very big buzzword at the moment, and so just to catch what it's not. It's not necessarily about relaxing. I get this all the time, people coming and saying, oh, I just want to relax, you know. Um, and I think also, Sarah, you mentioned this. It's really about noticing what's here as it is. It's like this now, okay? And what's here now, be it sensations, thoughts, emotions, whatever is present in our experience, um, it might not always be pleasant, right? So this is not positive. This is not positive thinking. This is not just think your way into happiness, but really it's meeting what's here with compassion and acceptance as best we can, the good, the bad, the ugly, which is hard, right? This goes against our natural human way of being in the world. Something unpleasant happens, we automatically push it away, we deny it, we use our ways of distracting, right? This is our collective method, and that makes sense because who wants to feel unpleasant? No one. But also that, of course, as we see it, it doesn't really work, right? It perpetuates the problem. So mindfulness is about accepting what's here, the good, the bad, the ugly, as best we can with compassion. It's also, as I said, a practice, okay? We don't like do this thing once and then it's like, oh, I was mindful and now everything's amazing. Um, just like anything else, we think about going to the gym, we're building a muscle, right? This muscle of the mind that has to be trained. We have to first go to the gym and learn how to use the machines. I don't know where this analogy is coming from, but we go in there, we kind of might feel silly or awkward, we might do it wrong the first time, or we have this kind of fumbliness about us perhaps. And yeah, this is it, this is the practice we're engaged in. It's also not about clearing our minds. So sometimes people think, well, I can't clear my mind, so then I can't be mindful. Another misconception is that we're supposed to be able to turn these minds off, and that is like asking our lungs not to breathe. Like, it is impossible. If you guys have ever tried to do that, you'll quickly notice that it's impossible. So you're not doing it wrong. We just have a misunderstanding about what it is we're doing when we're being mindful or when we're meditating. And so the practice that we're engaged in when we're meditating, and I'll speak a little bit to this, is that we're focusing on the breath, the body, sounds around us, something happening right here in the present moment. The mind comes in, right? Oh, you got to, do this thing or that thing, the to-do list, the worry, the anxiety, whatever it is. And we come back, and we come back with a gentleness but a firmness to the breath, to the feet on the floor, to the bum in the chair, to whatever is here, and then we're gone again. So it's a practice of returning rather than a practice of stillness. So each time we come back, we're like, what is this? Bicep curl. We're lifting weights. And if we were just here the whole time, we were just mindful, we were just present the whole time, it would be like not lifting up the weights at the gym, right? So mindfulness is really about noticing when we're gone and choosing to come back. And each time we do that, we strengthen our capacity to come back again and again. Does it make sense what I'm saying?
That's a great analogy. I love it. Like you're exercising a muscle. It's building strength, and I love that how you framed it as it's a practice. And I do hear people saying, I can't think like, am I thinking the wrong thing when I'm in my mindfulness? It's about returning and being
Yeah.
forgiving and kind to yourself. I thought it was a great analogy. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So just to catch that, I also think that, this is sometimes we talk about it um, like we're learning how to not shoot ourselves with the second arrow. And just a brief narrative here. There's inevitable suffering in life, right? This is like a traditional Buddhist parable, but that there is suffering in life. There is sickness, there is death, there is hardship, there is stress, there is pain, etc. Um, and so we get shot with this arrow, right? And then the second arrow, or the arrow we shoot ourselves with, is the not wanting that to be the case, right? So something unpleasant is happening, and then I start going, oh, why is this happening to me? Or we add these extra layers on top of the experience. Again, not our fault, but this is what the mind does. A hard time, the fourth arrow, the fifth arrow, etc. And so mindfulness is really the process of learning how to not shoot the extra arrows, right? And to be with what's here, and to not try to push it away or make it worse. And so it's through this process that we're actually able to like reduce stress or work with unpleasantness or experience less unpleasantness it's not because we've changed the unpleasant thing necessarily, but how we're relating to it. I.e., not adding the extra arrows or denying it or pushing it away or distracting ourselves from it. And yeah, so that's kind of how it works. And I want to guide us through a short mindfulness practice because, like, this is an experiential practice. So I could come in here and talk for hours about mindfulness, and until we do the thing together, it's like we're reading a book about swimming, and you could read every book ever about swimming, but until you get in the water, you don't know how to swim. And it is like that. It's an experiential practice. This is not a cognitive exercise. This is not I heard this and now it's happening. We can't think our way into it. So I want
That's
to
great. Let's get in the water and let's promise not to shoot arrows while Emily guides us through this. Let's
Okay.
go.
Can I get a time check? Just how long do we have here? Just so I have a sense.
I think we have about 15 minutes or so. Is that
Okay.
okay?
That's great. Yeah, yeah. Just good to know where we are.
Okay.
So I'm going to guide us through a short meditation practice. And so we might think about meditation as sometimes these are also used synonymously, mindfulness and meditation, right? So I'll just clarify. Mindfulness is like the umbrella of the quality that we're cultivating, right? And we want to cultivate mindfulness. It's also a verb, we can be mindful, and meditation might be the training ground for which we cultivate that mindfulness, because as I said, just thinking and wanting mindfulness isn't enough to make us more mindful. It's literally, we're literally rewiring the brain. Okay, so it's hard. Also, we have to go to the gym. We have to get in the water. So that's what we'll do. So my meditation is the practice of getting in the water. To learn how to swim or to how to be mindful. So I'm going to just ring a bell and give us a few minutes to slow down together, and feeling free to engage with this in whatever capacity feels good and right for you. Dropping below my guidance at any time to do what's right for you, of course, but I'll just ring the bell and we'll take 5 minutes or so here. So we're just really pausing together here. We've been listening and some of us sharing for a while. So let's just drop inside ourselves as best we can. We can allow the eyes to close if that feels okay, comfortable. Option, just soften the gaze or lower the gaze. We're on these screens perhaps, so maybe we just allow the screen to kind of drop out of focus. Just letting these eyes know that we don't need them for the next 5 minutes or so. And just starting to notice our posture. We don't need to sit in any special way, but maybe just we even bring awareness to the physical body sitting here. Is there any way that we can bring a little bit more ease? Maybe we allow the feet to come flat to the floor if we're sitting in a chair, or just finding a way to be sort of relatively at ease or comfortable in the body. Noticing if we're unnecessarily holding or bracing anywhere. Maybe we can invite that to soften. So softening feet and legs and glutes. Maybe we can also invite the pelvis, the belly to soften. Checking in with the shoulders. They can be often up around the ears. Maybe we give them a wiggle. Just invite shoulders to come away from the ears. Noticing how the head is balanced on the neck. We invite a gentle uplift through the crown of the head, inviting jaw to soften. Maybe the tongue comes away from the roof of the mouth. All these little muscles of the face softening. We already notice what the mind is doing now. If it's giving commentary on this practice, if we're already on the to-do list, if we're in the future, the past, we just notice that. It's not a problem, but we, as I mentioned before, just invite ourselves back. So getting again a sense of the points of contact, the feet perhaps on the floor or wherever they are. Feeling the weight of the body at the seat. In the hands, wherever they are. Just expanding the awareness now to include whatever else is here. So maybe we notice sounds around us. Or how we're feeling, or what mood or moods are here. How am I? Noticing what thoughts are here. Mind is busy or still, not judging, just checking it out. Feeling the natural breath in the body. Just noticing the fact that we are breathing. In a moment, I'll ring the bell. So just wiggling fingers and toes. Can rotate wrists, ankles, if you want to stretch or move. Blinking the eyes open if they're closed, no rush. I'm aware that there's quite a few people on the call, but an option to use the chat if we want to just say a word about what we notice about that, what that experience is like.
For me, even just taking a few minutes to do that, I already know that I will be even more calm and relaxed for the rest of the call than I was before. Like every time I even just take a few minutes to do that, I feel it right away.
What do you feel, Sarah, if I can ask? What is the
I
feeling?
feel like my whole body feels less tense every time. Yeah, I just feel like almost like a weight lifted, like I just feel more relaxed and a little bit more present and calm.
Anyone, I'm seeing these words, relaxing, calming. Um, yeah, anyone have a busy mind? Anyone noticing a lot of thinking? So this is the,
Sorry, Emily, do those comments resonate that you've seen them before?
yeah, absolutely. Like I think it's like particularly um, I'm just reading Michelle's here. Like sometimes busy, sometimes being distracted because of the busy background noises, like, yeah, we're really in the midst of it all, right? We're pausing in the middle of our lives, and often it's, we see these sounds as distractions. And I, I think it's really important that we highlight this because it's also like the distraction is the practice too, right? There is no like, we're supposed to be having this experience, but I'm having this experience, and so that's not doesn't fit or something, right? So it's like the distraction is the going away, an opportunity to come back and to lift that weight. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to name that, but yeah, we're not good at doing this. I think collectively, how often do we sit down to like feel the fact that we're sitting here in the middle of a call, and it's not our fault, right? Like our societies aren't structured around this either. So, um, but yeah, noticing, oh, that like there can be some a relaxation or a softening of tension once we notice the tension is here. But often, like Sarah, what you're saying, it's like, oh, I notice that every time I do this, I like there's a softening that happens. It's like, yeah, because we don't even know that we're tense. We're just like we're like these little shrimps or something, on these computer screens. And it's not our fault. The body holds tension, right? That we have stress but once we notice there's an opportunity to do something differently to soften, even if it's for like a second, like great, and then
I love all the floating hearts migrating up my screen. You're resonating with people. That's awesome. I'll remind people, if you do want to pose a question in the Q&A box, please feel free to do so. But in the meantime, a few questions came to mind I want to ask Sarah, Erwin, and Emily as a group. Sarah, Emily did a great job talking about the misconceptions about mindfulness. I'm still feeling it's going to be hard to integrate into my busy day. Can you give me one small, manageable mindfulness tip for how I can build it in to what feels like a busy day? I can't spend even 30 seconds doing anything but what I have to do. Where do I start?
yeah, it's a great question. I think it's a big question. It's, as I said, it's a practice. So like what is even if it's one breath, what can we do? It's a matter of remembering, because as I said, it's not our default mode to do these things. So whatever it takes to remind ourselves to literally take one deep breath, whether that's like the sticky note. I have clients who have sticky notes all over the place, to remind themselves to just actually feel, to even just to feel one breath, to be like, oh, I'm breathing for this 1 second. Another tangible thing might be to choose one routine thing that we do every day that we just do anyway. Okay, so it's like, if you have a cup of coffee, can we be there for that cup of coffee and experience it fully, like actually taste it, like actually smell it, like to see the steam, like to use our five senses to interact with this whatever the thing is. Can I this is hand sanitizer, but is there something that I can learn about this thing, this whole beginner's mind, this curiosity that Sarah, you spoke about? It's like, oh, I didn't know that hand sanitizer had these little tiny black letters on it or something, right? But and that maybe that doesn't matter, but we're training a way of seeing. So if I'm really fully there for my coffee, it's like, oh wow, I get to really be here. I think it's like Thich Nhat Hanh. It's a Buddhist monk. He was saying something like, if we wash the dishes only to get, not for like the amazing experience, the miracle that it is to be standing at the kitchen sink, but only to get to the cup of coffee, by chance, by the time we get there, we'll be somewhere else because we'll have something else to do. And so we're never actually getting to enjoy the cup of coffee. It's like we're always on to the next thing. And again, not our fault, because it's how we're wired, especially when there's stress. But can we make those micro moments of actually being present with the thing that we're doing anyway, so it doesn't add an extra thing on the to-do list?
Great explanation. There are a lot of kidney folk in this space, and I'm curious, Sarah, Erwin, why is this especially important for people managing a journey with kidney disease? Everyone should probably be doing more mindfulness, but why when you're managing or supporting a loved one managing kidney disease does this matter? And how do you carve out time when everything's competing, going for blood tests, seeing your nephrologist, going to treatment? Sarah, do you want to start?
Sure. I think the emotional toll for both patients and caregivers can obviously be pretty heavy. And I've kind of learned that navigating the feelings and the worries that go along with all of it without support can be pretty difficult. I think everyone has different experiences with healthcare, and I know unfortunately in some cases the mental health side of it might not be prioritized quite as much. And it can be really easy to just get caught up in like the medical side of things. But mental health is just as important. And for caregivers, I think it's important to remember that self-care is not selfish, and remember that saying, like, you can't pour from an empty cup. So I think doing things like this to take time for yourself is important, to be able to show up with the energy and the patience that you need. And for those of us dealing with CKD too, I would say just remember to be kind to yourself. And it's really easy to fall into the trap of like worrying about the things that you can't control and feeling alone and frustrated. But just talking to others going through the same thing is really nice, to connect with other people who understand and to have these sort of conversations that we're having today, and to share these insights with people. So I think, yeah, it's been really important. Family members and friends can kind of offer sympathy, but I think connecting with other people like what we're doing today makes a really big difference, just having these conversations.
I like the way you frame that. It made a difference. Erwin, in your journey supporting Kathy, can you reflect on one way that being in a mindfulness practice improved things for Kathy or for yourself? What would have been different if you hadn't taken time to cook, to garden, to paint?
Um, it would have been a rush to do the things that need to be done in a day. And there are things that have to be done, and you have to find the time. But if you can, as Sarah said, self-care is not selfish. So I prepare myself by doing what I feel I need to do for myself so that then I can help Kathy do what she needs to do to take care of herself with regards to her kidney disease. If that means putting a plate of food in front of her or making sure that um, what she needs in the way of special picking up her medications at the drugstore, those are the things that I can do for her that I know help her, and knowing that I can help her helps me because basically that is my job. We are a two-person company. I'm the CEO and she's the VP, and between the two of us we run the company. She helps me, I help her.
I love how you self-identified as the CEO, or
She appointed me as CEO.
uh, she's a major stockholder. I have a question for Emily. Someone posted in the Q&A, any tips for how to relax and even manage pain at night when it's really important to rest and get to sleep, to regenerate? Many people struggle to get good sleep and struggle to manage chronic pain or restless leg syndrome. Anything where they can start to address that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Um, it's really, and I'll just kind of come back again to what Sarah said, is this capacity to go into this rumination mode as well, right? So there can be pain, and also there's this capacity of mind to keep us awake by thinking about all the things. So there's a sensation, there's an unpleasant experience in the body, and then there's this extra layer of the mind that comes in and with a story about that pain and worries, and and again, not our fault, because minds are trying to keep us safe and protect us, and that's the function of the mind, right? It's trying its best, and it doesn't come without, the downside, which is like, wanting to sleep when it's time to sleep. Minds don't understand that, so again, if it's possible and as best we can, we stay with what's immediately here, whether that's being, okay, can I actually be in my body, pay attention, instead of shifting from the mind and shifting back into the body in a place where there isn't pain, for example, to feel the physical contact of being held by bed, the effect of gravity on the body, the sense of weightiness of body, or to rest in sound, something else that is here in the moment. If being with the body is too it's too uncomfortable, like the focus becomes, how do I notice when my mind is doing this and shift the awareness somewhere else that it can be more settled. um, I will just also catch that, like, this is really difficult to do this. And again, this is a practice. So having the support of people who do mindfulness work like myself, or having the support of other community members, people who practice these things, can be really supportive, so that we don't feel so siloed in, yeah, because we're literally rewiring the brain, right? So again, it takes time and dedication, and community support and support of others can be really helpful.
Well said, Emily. It's hard work. I love how you underpin that. Having the conversation is a good first step for people who have been struggling, I think, and acknowledging that maybe there's a curiosity. How am I going to explore mindfulness? Um, I wanted to thank all our wonderful panelists for today's engaging and really, really informative session. big thank you as well to everyone who took time today to join us. Almost 50 people, and I didn't see many people drift off or disconnect. I think that speaks to why it's important. We hope you really found the discussion helpful and inspiring. At the Kidney Foundation, we're committed to providing information and educational resources about kidneys and kidney disease. Through our regional branch offices, we do offer advice and support about accessing services within the healthcare system and support in your community. We invite you to contact us if you have further questions. I also wanted to share an invitation to join the final webinar of 2024, a cooking demonstration for healthier kidneys on December 3rd from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Don't miss this chance to cook along with registered dietitians Anja Webster and Danny Renouf as they prepare 5 delicious kidney-friendly recipes, and they'll answer your questions live. Click the link in the chat to register today. Remember, when today's webinar ends, your computer will open to a new page. We're going to ask you to complete a webinar satisfaction survey. This feedback is important to us as we continue to try to understand how to develop the webinar series. We would really appreciate it if you would take a moment to complete it. The survey is available in both English and French through a language button in the upper right corner of your screen. On behalf of the Kidney Foundation of Canada, thank you. Thank you very much for attending today's webinar. Have a wonderful day.